Hello and welcome to the end of week 3. Hopefully you have found these PowerPoints to be helpful and you found this week off from class to be helpful in getting some work done. So today we'll talk about Paterson chapters 3 and 4 and then we'll jump into the rest of the text when we get back in class next week. So the previous chapter was overcoming the stress barrier and how when we're under stress it can cause us to be more passive or more aggressive or more passive aggressive. So this chapter talks about how we have social barriers that prevent us from being more assertive, and Paterson talks about 5 different social barriers or social problems that prevent us from being more assertive. And first is the fear of change, or as he describes it, the what does it mean problem. This is when you start trying to be more assertive in relationships where in the past you've been passive or aggressive, people who you're close to may start thinking, okay, what does this mean? How does this change a relationship? What is this going to look like going forward? And so that fear of just the change in the relationship, some people, that is enough to prevent them from trying to change to be more assertive. Or maybe they try it one time and they get some backlash from somebody saying, oh, I don't like this new you, and so people revert back to the old way. The other is similar. It's the history problem, that if we have always acted in a passive manner, people come to expect that, and so we have a history of always being passive, and so when we change, we're no longer meeting those expectations of how people expect us to act, and so that can cause us to just stay in the same ineffective communication styles. Next is the control problem. People, especially when you have a more passive style, people can have some more control over you, and so if you start to become more assertive, people can feel like they're losing that control, and people don't like to lose control that they maybe previously had. So if you think about maybe a boyfriend-girlfriend situation where, let's just say the girlfriend had a lot of control and power in the situation. When the boyfriend tries to assert himself, the woman may see that she's losing control and lash out at this, and that may cause then the boyfriend to revert back to his old ways. The boundary setting problem. If you were more passive and now you're trying to set these boundaries of, I'm not just going to do whatever you ask me to do, or I'm not going to do your laundry at midnight, I'm not going to give in to these unreasonable demands. People may push back against these new boundaries, and as people push back harder and harder, again, you may revert back to your old ways. And then there's the gender problem, and we've talked already quite a bit about gender, and so but part of this can just be that women, again, not all women, but often women are raised to be more passive, to serve others, be nice, to be the caretaker, and in some relationships to be not as important as a man. And so the woman's gender may prevent her from being more assertive. And similarly, with the man has a gender problem too, in that men are seen as needing to be aggressive and demanding and controlling. And this then they tend to be aggressive, and when they try to be just assertive or less aggressive, they're not meeting that gender expectation or gender role. And there's some good questions for you to reflect on page 50, and this may help with your memo if you want to, if this is of particular interest to you. So they talk about how do we overcome the belief barrier. In the last chapter, he talked about this. We have a situation, and then we have our appraisal of the situation. What does the situation mean? And then our response. Well, with the belief barrier, we have to, our beliefs influence what our appraisal is going to be. And our beliefs can come from lots of different places. First, it can be taught to us. I give an example of education was something that was taught. The idea that education is important was taught to me from my parents, and so I grew to have that same belief. Others, we pick up beliefs by example. So in my family, it was very important that we help others who were less fortunate or who were in need. And so nobody really told me I should do that, but by seeing my parents and extended family doing that often, I picked that up and say, you know, that's something that I believe is important too. And then through our own experiences, we, for an example for myself is through my personal experiences, I realized nobody's going to advocate for myself. I need to be the advocate. And that was through personal experiences. And so some we just learn as we go through our own life experiences. But there are, so all of those beliefs you can see are positive or are not distorted. But we do sometimes have distorted beliefs, and those distorted beliefs can impact our appraisal, which then impacts our response. So some of the beliefs around assertiveness, well, first we'll talk about the beliefs associated with being passive, and there's quite a few you'll, as you see in the book. So I'll just highlight a couple of them, and because we touched on this in the first chapter as well. But some people, they have a belief that being assertive is selfish, and so they don't want to be seen as selfish, and so that's why they develop a more passive style. Others, they see it as a way of being loved and accepted. If I just do everything this person wants me to do, they'll love me or they'll accept me or I can be a part of their group. And then for others, they were taught that it's impolite to disagree. And so this again can be a family norm or a culture norm. If it's never okay to disagree, or you can never voice opposition to a parent or to an elder, then you may adopt this belief that anytime I disagree, I'm being impolite or rude. A few others are listed here on this next slide. It's important to be nice, and again, that's not a bad belief in and of itself, but there are times that being nice, people think of being nice as just doing what somebody else wants you to do and not getting what you want or not getting your needs met. And that's not healthy or productive. Then lastly, my opinion doesn't matter. People who are passive hold this belief, and this can come from, again, in your family. Maybe you're told, I don't care what you have to say, or your opinion doesn't matter in this household, and that carries over even once children become adults. In terms of aggressive, there's a few beliefs related to the aggressive style. And first is this idea that I'm entitled to be angry. And again, you are entitled to all of your feelings. It's not wrong to be angry. But sometimes this belief that I'm entitled to be angry translates to I'm entitled to lash out or express my anger in a negative way onto others. Others have this belief that if they're not aggressive, then nothing's going to happen or they're not going to get what they want. That being aggressive is the only way to get your needs met. Then they also talk about honesty being the best policy, and sometimes people hide behind this because sometimes aggressive people will say something that's that they intentionally are saying to be hurtful, but they will say, well, I'm just being honest. And so that, yes, they may be quote unquote trying to be honest, but their intent is not really to be helpful, but rather to be hurtful. And then there's a couple with passive aggressive. For people who are passive aggressive, they believe that people should be more considerate. And so when people aren't considerate, they don't want to directly confront the person, but they want to do something to hurt them in some way to realize, like, you shouldn't have done that to me. And so I give this example of my sister-in-law who was dating a guy, and he told her that he couldn't go out. They had a date planned to go to a musical or to a play at the theater, and he said that he couldn't go. And she said something like, oh, it's no big deal. But then later she was saying, he should have known I really wanted to go to that play, and he should have known that would make me upset. Again, we expect sometimes people to know things without us voicing them. And so that's a passive-aggressive belief that people should just know what we want or know to be more considerate. So that is the end of chapter 4. At this point, I just want to make sure that you have been posting on the discussion board. You need to make a post in each of those 3 discussion boards by Friday, June 12th. So make sure you're going in and making a post. It should be substantive, at least, you know, I would say at least 100 words. You should be making some, you know, thoughtful points. And then also you should have been working on that reflective individual and doing a peer edit and getting that submitted. And then letting me know what your interview questions are going to be for your leadership analysis paper. Then, of course, getting ahead in the course as much as possible. You can start working on other portfolio reflections, and also, again, working on your leadership analysis paper. Again, if you have any questions throughout this week, make sure that you're emailing me, and I will be in touch. And I will see you on Monday, June 15th.